This question appeared on a video about how to use stored procedure parameters to populate the datasets in your report builder reports. And what Daniel wanted to know was if it was possible to use output parameters in those stored procedures. It certainly is, and this video is going to show you the basics of how that works. If you'd like to follow along with the video, you'll need a couple of things to get started. First of all, a copy of the Wiseowl Movies database I'm going to use to demonstrate the technique. You can have a search for that in YouTube's search bar, and then there's a link in the video description which you can use to download a script file which will recreate that database for you. You'll also need a copy of Report Builder, of course. I've got a basic empty report ready and waiting for us. I've already created a data source which points to the movies database already, so you can set one up like that to point to that movies database. And then finally, you'll need a copy of SQL Server Management Studio or equivalent tool to write and create your store procedure. So again, I've got a basic script set up ready and waiting to go using that movies database. Before we start writing any code, let's have a quick look at what we're aiming to achieve. I'm going to switch back to Daniel's original question. So what he's trying to do, he's got a store procedure with an output parameter, which is used to return an ID number, and then that ID number needs to get passed to another select statement to affect the result of that. So there's an execute statement in the script there, which has a couple of input parameters, and then this is the output parameter, which is capturing the ID number. That ID number then gets used in the next select statement to affect the results returned, and that's the select statement, which will populate the data set of the report. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to create a simplified version. We're going to create a store procedure which returns the ID number of a film based on the title of a film that an end user might pass into the store procedure. We'll then take the ID number of that film and use that to return a list of the roles, the parts that appeared in that film. So let's set up the basic store procedure first to accept a film title and then return a list of film IDs matching the title that the user's passed in. So I'll start with a create proc statement, and I'm going to call my store procedure something like USP get film ID. And of course we need a single input parameter to make this work. So let's declare a parameter. I'm going to call mine at film title. And I'll set the data type to be the same as the data type of the title column of the film table, which is nvarchar 255. And we'll say as, and I'm going to drop in a begin end block here. And then let's just select the film IDs where the film title contains the text the user's passed in. So I'll say select film ID, if I can spell that correctly, from film, or from dbo.film, and then we'll say where title, like, and then at film title. Okay, so there's the absolute basics of the store procedure. Let's execute that, and then we'll create another query just to test the results of that. I'm going to say use movies and go, and then at the top of this we'll say exec, and then I want to call on my store procedure. You may remember from previous videos, if you try to reference the store procedure immediately after it's being created, your IntelliSense list probably won't have caught up with the fact that it exists yet, so I can't see it in the list here. So Control and Shift and R on the keyboard, or edit IntelliSense, refresh local cache, will update your IntelliSense and allow you then to see it in the list, so dbo dot, and then I should find USP get film ID. Now I need to pass in the name of the film I'm looking for, and that's going to be passed in as a string. So let's say in some single quotes here, what should we go for? Let's go for Potter. I'm going to surround that with percentage symbols as wildcards. So it's going to find a list of all the film IDs where the film contains the word Potter. So if I hit the execute button there, there's a list of my film IDs. To make sure I can assign a value to an output parameter, I need to make sure I'm returning only a single result. So let's head back to the definition of the store procedure, and we'll make a modification here. I'm going to change my create statement to a create or alter statement, and then we'll modify the definition of this store procedure so that it only selects one single film ID. I'm going to use a top one modifier there to the select statement. I'd maybe like to see the films sorted in release date order. So I return the first film that was released containing the text I've typed in. So I'm going to add an order by clause as well, order by release date ASC. So we can execute the script to update our store procedure, head back to the test script, execute it again, and now we return just one single result. So that's the ID number of the first film released in my database that's got the word Potter in its title. Next, we need to change the way the stored procedure returns its result, so that rather than appearing in the results grid, this value gets passed into an output parameter. So we'll need to declare that output parameter first. Let's head back to the script which defines our stored procedure, and then in the parameter list, let's add a new parameter. I'm going to call this one @filmID. Its data type will be an int, and the important thing is that we indicate that it's an output parameter. Now inside the body of the stored procedure, we can assign a value to that output parameter using a basic set statement. So before the select statement, I'm going to say set @filmID equals, and then I'm simply going to wrap a set of parentheses around the entire select statement here, essentially turning it into a subquery. So now the results of that select statement get passed into that parameter. Let's execute the script to update the definition of our stored procedure, and then we can have a look at how we can capture that output parameter. To capture the value of the output parameter, we'll need to head back to the test script. And to create somewhere to store the value of the output parameter, we'll also need to declare a variable. So above the execute statement, let's say declare, and I'm going to call my variable output ID. I'll make its data type the same as the data type of the parameter, an int, and then we can simply pass that variable into the second parameter of our store procedure. So after we've passed the value of the name of the film we're trying to find, we can add a comma and then simply pass in a reference to that variable name. Just as we did when we declared the output parameter, we need to indicate that we're using this parameter as an output, so add the word output to the end. Finally, we can check that we've actually successfully captured a value in the parameter by selecting the content of the variable. So let's say select @output_ID. And if we execute that script again now, we'll see we've basically just created an incredibly convoluted way to do what we've already done. We can see we get the results of our output parameter in the results grid. Now, of course, the point of capturing the value of the output parameter isn't so that we can just display that to the end user, it's so that we can use it to influence the results of another select statement. So let's modify this select statement to make it a bit more meaningful. I'm going to say select from the role table of my database, dbo.role, and I'll give it a quick alias as r. And then in the select list, I could say r.role. And then let's also have things like r.filmID, r.actorID. And then I can add a where clause to my query to say where r.filmID equals, and then the value of that output parameter. So if we execute that script again now, there we go, we've got 3 meaningful columns containing the roles played in the first film in the database containing the word Potter in its title. We could maybe make this a little bit more meaningful again by bringing in a couple of additional tables to show the title of the film and the name of the actor. So while we're here, why not take the opportunity to add a couple of joins into the from clause? Let's say join dbo.film as f on r.filmID equals f.filmID. And then I'll also join in dbo.actor a on r.actorID equals a.actorID. And then let's see, rather than saying r.filmID, let's say f.title. And then rather than r.actorID, let's say a.full name. And I'll give that a quick alias as well as actor name. So executing the script again now returns a bunch of meaningful information derived from the value we've captured in that output ID parameter. So now that we have the basic system working, we can populate our report builder dataset using the code we've used here in this test script. So I'm going to copy everything from where I've declared my output ID variable all the way down to the end of that select statement. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, head back to report builder, and then I'm going to add a new data set based on my movie's data source. So I can right click on that and choose add dataset. I'll call this one, what should we call it, roles in film. And then we can simply paste in all the code we've copied into the query box. So identical to what we've just been using in SQL Server Management Studio. If I then hit the OK button, we'll generate a new dataset with those 3 columns from the final select statement. Let's add a table into the report so we can see the results. I'll insert a table, and conveniently I've selected 3 columns in the select statement, so 3 columns in the table. Maybe I'll just change the width of those columns a little bit so we can see what's going on. And just to avoid any annoyances with the font rendering bug, I'm just going to quickly switch the fonts of that table and then back to Arial. Okay, so at this point, if we run the query, or run the report I should say, we'll end up with the same results using the output parameter, but displayed in the form of a report builder report. Now at this point, it's probably worthwhile looking at one potential reason that Daniel couldn't get this system working. If I just quickly switch back to his original question, Daniel's using very good practice when he's executing his store procedure. He's naming each value that he's passing to the parameters in the store procedure. So he's got 2 input parameters and then his output parameter here as well. Were I writing this in SQL Server Management Studio as a script, I would definitely be doing the same thing here. So my getFilmID store procedure has got a parameter called @filmTitle and one called @filmID. And in the real world, I would be writing those names at the beginning of each argument. So I'd say @filmTitle equals Potter, and then @outputID, or sorry, I should say @filmID equals outputID. Okay, now in this script, this makes no difference. If I execute that script, I get exactly the same results. But if I try to use that same code in my report to build a report, things don't go quite so well. I'm going to copy all that code again, just to make sure I don't make any typing mistakes. Head back to Report Builder, head back to the design view, and then head back to the dataset properties. I'm going to code that I pasted in earlier and replace it with the new code that I've just copied. If I now hit OK, you might notice the immediate problem here. Naming the parameters in the execute statement of when I want to call my store procedure generates 2 report parameters with those same names. And if I try to run the query or run the report, I can't until I provided values for these things, which essentially breaks the entire system. So I need to go back to the design view and I need to switch out the code for my dataset. If I go back to my dataset properties, the simplest thing to do here is just remove the names of the parameters and the equal sign. Then I'll probably have a little bit of tidying up to do as well to remove the report parameters as well. So don't use named parameters if you're doing this in a report builder dataset. I'll hit OK and I'll just delete those 2 report parameters that have been created and then run the report again to make sure I get the same results. Now at the moment our report isn't particularly useful because it simply returns the same values every single time we run it. We haven't provided a way for the end user to enter a film title for the roles they're looking for. So let's take advantage of the problem we've just encountered with named parameters. I'm going to head back to my design view and then I'm going to go back to the dataset properties for my roles in film dataset. Just zoom in so we can see what's going on here. Where I've entered the explicit value Potter wrapped up in some single quote characters, I'm going to remove that part entirely and replace it with a brand new parameter name, one that I haven't used yet. So I'm going to say let's make this really obvious, let's call it user entered film name. Okay. Now we've seen what happens when we try to use named parameters in the calling script, and because that's essentially been treated in the same way here, if I hit OK, we'll see we get a new report parameter created to tie in with that query parameter. So if we run the report again, I'll just go with the same example we just used. I'm going to go %Potter %, and then hit enter, just to make sure that it's still working and returning the same results. But then let's change the word Potter in there. Let's go for %. What should we go for? Let's go for Star Wars and see what we get there. The first Star Wars film listed in our database. There we go. So now we've got the option for the end user to influence the results they return using this parameter. The final thing we might need to consider is what should happen if the name of the film we type in doesn't return any results. It looks like Daniel's handled that with a simple if statement in his calling script. So the script which populates our dataset is using an if statement to check as long as the output value is greater than 0, then return the set of results. Well, which works, it's fine, but it's probably a little unnecessary in this case. If I just switch back to Report Builder and I type in some complete gibberish text, which I hopefully won't find the name of any film matching that, if I view the report, we simply return an empty table anyway. Now, probably the best way to make this look a little bit more user-friendly is to replace the empty column headings with a no rows message. So I'm going to head back to my design view. I'm going to make sure I've got my table selected. So that's the entire thing, not a single cell in it, the entire table or tablix. I can then find inside the properties window the no rows section. And inside there should be a property called no rows message. And we'll just do something really simple in here. I'm going to type in no matching films. We can apply some basic formatting properties if we like as well, like changing the font color if we want to, make it red, changing any other font properties you like maybe a bit more bold as well. Let's go for that. Okay, so if we run the report again, I'll just do a quick check to make sure if I type in a meaningful name, like I'll go for the word star. There we go. So we got Star Wars again. And then if I replace that with some nonsensical text, there we go. Our table gets replaced with our no rows message. So there we go. There's the entire system working with output parameters. Hopefully that's sufficient to answer the original question. Thanks for asking it, Daniel. Hope that helped. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.